Hi, this is Gary with Gary DeVitti's Painting. I want to show you some little caulking and masking off and caulking instruction here, a little how-to. And what I've got is I've got a piece of trim here that I pulled off this house. It's just no longer needed. It was on top of the wainscot paneling that I removed. But I just want to show you some tips on masking and caulking. I think most people just don't get this. Because you need to mask off so that you won't get paint all over this piece of wood, or like you can see I've got it masked off there on my baseboard. Going around the floor so to protect that. But when you mask things off, you have to leave a little bit of the wood showing. And I want to show you right here where I can, see if I can find that joint right there. Let's see if I can hold that just right. You can see where there's a little bit of this stained wood showing right there. Now that's too much. I just made it extra big so you could see it. But you can see that I haven't masked off the very edge. Now right back here, if I can find that little joint there, you can see that right here, that's more like it. See, there's still a tiny bit of that wood showing there. It's only about half as much as there is that amount. So that's maybe like a 32nd, I don't know, 64th. But it's just very, very little amount of this stained wood showing. And it's real consistent. All the way up. Now let me show you this one down here. This is what you never, I mean never want to do. That's masked off right up exactly to the edge. There is no wood showing whatsoever. You don't ever want to do that. And then here I did this one. This is kind of what I call a roller coaster. That's where it's too much wood showing there, not enough showing that there, and then it goes too much. I mean, it's just like a roller coaster, in and out, in and out, in and out. And that's usually a matter of stretching your tape. You're putting it on with this finger right here, and your right hand is over on this side, and you're actually yanking on it with your right hand, and it causes it to stretch in a roller coaster like that, and that just looks like crap. So anyway, like I say, back here is just what you want. And the reason you're leaving a little bit of wood showing is so that whenever you put your caulking, let's say this thing's up against the wall like that, and so now when I apply caulk to this, if this is a baseboard, then a little bit of my caulk is going to go onto this piece of wood, and some's going to go onto the wall. If I, right here, where I've got it masked off perfectly, then all that's going to happen is some of the caulk's going to end up on the wall, but the rest is going to end up on this tape, just the tape. And so when I pull that tape off, some of the caulking is going to come back with it. And as long as I have this tiny bit of wood showing right here, then there's a little bit of something for the caulk to hold on to on this side. It's not just holding on to the tape. And so when I pull the tape off, then the caulk is not going to come off with the tape. It will cut a straight line right there. But then the caulk has something to hold on to on both sides, and it will stay in there. This is, like I said, that's just too much. That's a consistent amount. I did a consistent amount, but that's way too much. You don't want that much paint on your wood. That's none. And so some of it's going to come right back off when the tape comes off, and that's just going to look like crap. And so now let's say that this house, of course, this house was built in 1983, and had I not taken this baseboard off, then there wouldn't be any crack there. You can see that there is a crack to fill. But in here in the hallway, where this thing's been painted for 25 years, there's no crack there. But guess what? If I was going to mask that off, I would still pretend like it didn't have any caulking in there. I would do it the same way. Paper off here. I would do it the same way. I would just try to draw an imaginary line, if you will, where the old baseboard ended, and so I would essentially still leave a little wood showing. I wouldn't put that thing. That's really hard to see right there. About impossible. But I still wouldn't put it right next to that wall. I would pretend like that was still like it was back in the day with a crack there. Leave a little bit of that wood showing, and then I would caulk it again. And again, there's nothing to fill. You can see that there's nothing to fill. Well, I'm getting a shadow there. But that caulking can do two things. It can, of course, fill that crack between the wall, but it also waterproofs the edge of your masking tape. It waterproofs the edge, and so that whenever you get ready to cut in with a brush, if the paint can't just immediately wick behind your tape and get on your baseboard. Now here, it would be a little forgiving because the wall paint's not going to be much different than the trim color. But if this was stained, like it was originally, it was stained wood, and you had an off-white wall, there's a big difference there, and it would just look horrible if you did a bad job. So that caulking is doing two things. It is filling the crack, and this is something I do too. When you put that tape down there, it doesn't do any good if it's stuck right there. You need the tape to be stuck way back there. And so I put my fingers up on edge, and I'm not just, a lot of guys will just wipe that, and really all they're doing is they're just wiping that edge. Well, no, I got them up there like that. I want to press against the back of that thing. So I'll cut a piece off, I'll place it on the wall, and then I'll lightly press it down all the way down, and then I'll go back like that. And again, you can do the same thing. You can end up with a roller coaster here if you tear this piece off, and that's about 2 foot long piece, and then I'll tack it right there, and then my right hand's over here holding this end right there. Well, if I sit there and I'm doing this with my right hand and I'm pulling really hard, then I will stretch it. And you can see there's a couple of ruffles there and in the tape anyway, because sometimes the tape is not perfectly wound and the paper is not perfectly wound, and you'll just kind of get this repeating little area like that, and hopefully it won't be a problem. But if you pull hard with your right hand, if you're right-handed, then you're literally going to stretch this tape, and it will just go in and out, in and out, in and out. And you probably won't even realize you're doing it. You're just kind of be nervous or whatever, and you just won't realize that you're actually pulling. This hand is pulling this way instead of just holding it steady. You're just going to hold it only. You're not going to pull, because if you pull, you will stretch. Okay, well now let's look at our caulking here. I don't know if you can see this again, but I don't have a very big tip in this caulking gun at all. That's a small tip. And this thing is almost, I also don't have much of an angle. See, that's almost cut straight. It's almost straight up and down. It's not really cut at a big, deep angle where it's going way back. Okay, well, there's nothing wrong with cutting it that way, but I like this way because I just think it's better kind of ergonomically than, I'm going to lay my phone down there for a second. I think it's just better ergonomically because then I can hold this thing like this. I don't get stuck having to hold it way down there. And when I'm caulking a door jamb, I can just keep this thing vertical all the way down to here. I can go down a lot farther. And if I've got it cut, at a big angle, then I need to hold my caulking gun at that exact same angle. And so when you're coming down a door jamb and you get to about right there, it's not very comfortable. And you can reach down here and then try to go up, but there's still, if you've got it cut where you have to hold it almost straight, you can come down to more like right here. It's just so much better, I think. So now let's see about putting some caulking in here and caulking this crack. And what I'm doing here, because a lot of people have trouble here, they'll put way too much caulking in there. Way too much caulking in. So I'm going to try to put that in there. And now let's see if I can wipe this out. Oh, it looks like I didn't put quite enough. Okay, well, that's no problem. You can always put more. And if I wasn't holding my camera, I think I'd probably do a little better job. First I'm going to get some in there. I'm going to fix this. I'm just going to hit that again a little heavier. Let's go down a little farther with a little more caulk. It's better if you can get it the first time. Okay, now I'm just going to wipe that again. And I want to show you basically how much excess I have. Okay, that's the excess. It's not like a big, huge, fat wad that I'm going to be doing that with. Nothing wrong with having excess, but you don't want to have too much. And so here's something people will do too. Now again, since I've cut this caulking tube pretty straight, I have to hold my gun like that. If I hold it like that, I'll make a huge mess. I'll end up with this big old ugly ropey bead right there. It's just sitting on top, and it will be. I have such a small tip, I can kind of do it, but you can see I've already got a lot more excess there. But I'll have to hold my caulking gun at the exact same angle that I cut it at. And so again, I just prefer the virtually perpendicular cut. And then a lot of people too, they'll be caulking along here, and man, they're just gonna have to fight it. It just kind of jerks real bad. And so they're pushing in, unbeknownst to them, they're actually pressing forward on this caulking gun. And so you can see I'm caulking this one-handed because I've got my camera with my left hand. And so you don't have to caulk one-handed, but you can see I can easily slide the thing down there. There's no problem whatsoever. And so you can use that as a gauge. If you're pressing in so hard with that caulking gun that it's jerking when you come along, then that means you're actually pressing down towards the baseboard. And so you could always just try it, and if you can smoothly apply that caulk with just one hand on the gun, then that means that you are not pressing down too hard. So let's just do it one more time here. And if you're just getting massive amounts of excess, then you're putting too much in there. You know, you only want the amount in there that's going to take you the job. And if you end up with that much excess, then that's more like it. That's not some big ugly wad. I can get rid of that right there. There's no excess. So with practice, and it's just a matter of squeezing that trigger, and then I always clean my tip off. I don't care every time. You'll never see me with my tip looking like that, where that caulking is all gooped up over there. That's not going to happen. That's crazy. It's always cleaned off, flick of the whistle every time. And so anyway, there's a lot to caulking. There's different things. Like I said, masking off. I could do a whole nother session on masking off, pulling that tape off of the masking machine. That thing's worth $1 million right there. It's worth its weight in gold. This has, you can have 3-inch paper, 6-inch like that. You can have a 9-inch, or you can have a 12-inch, or you can buy an 18-inch blade and have 18-inch paper, and it just loads the tape on there. But there are problems. If you buy really super cheap tape, it's just not wound very well. If you buy cheap paper, it's not wound very well. And so sometimes you'll just get these I don't know what to call them, but just kind of bad spots. It starts to you get wrinkles. That's the best, basically what you get, and so there's a lot of ins and outs to that, and kind of you always work out of the corner. I'll go along and I'll cut this piece, put it down. I'll cut that piece, put it down, and then I actually cut another piece, and I come from the corner out instead of cut, and then I just patch this little piece in right here. Instead of trying to cut one piece and working my way into the corner and having a big wad of paper right there that you can't get rid of, you just chop it and you come from the corner back out, and then if it overlaps this way that much, well, big deal, no problem. You just don't try to work your way into the corner. And then this thing has these little raised blocks here, and I just did those with masking tape only. Instead of having my paper get totally watered up there. That paper does come up a little bit there, but I just basically use tape on that. And then the same way on the windowsill, we'll go around the edge there and then do the main part of it. And I'll try, if possible now, to not mask off the door jambs. I'll try to freehand cut those. Historically, I would have never done that, but historically, we used flat wall paint in the 80s, and now it's all latex enamel. And latex enamel is just very rubbery, and so it's just more difficult to pull your paper. You can also, if you overload that with caulk down there and you just pile it on there and you got it going everywhere, then you're going to have huge problems, because you can get it on there so thick that the tape can't really cut through it. I'll show you. Here's another problem you want to avoid, or here's another technique. When you're wiping this off, if you'll notice that most of my finger, I'm going to wipe from here, and most of my finger is on the wall, and a little bit's on the tape. And so now that means there's less chance of, I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to come down here and make it happen. Okay, you can see where I've got that caulk smeared up on the wall. I've got this huge edge right there where it's all smeared up. Well, you don't want that. That's going to be a disaster. Now I can wipe that out since it's fresh. But by if I'm wiping this out and I have most of my finger on the wall, then that means if I have an edge like that, it's going to tend to put it down there on the tape instead. And so you don't want to have most of your finger on the tape. You want to have most of your finger on the wall. Now it's going to wear your fingernails out because I don't know if I can get that or not. My fingernail is definitely worn on this side, and it will just completely wear your fingernail out and you'll be bleeding if you're not careful. So you don't want to just get all crazy and go too fast, but it will just completely, that fingernail is starting to disappear on that side of my finger, and so you've just got to not get in a big hurry and not press down too hard. And if you have really rough texture, it makes it more difficult. But again, you don't do it like that. You do it more like that, where most of your finger is on the wall, so that there's less chance of that caulk getting on the other side of your finger. And then, like I said, if you can modulate the amount that you put on there, those tips, using those tips will help you be a better caulker. Thanks.